cans. Today we're going to can some salsa. And what you'll need for this recipe is a ton of tomatoes. Now all of these tomatoes are from our garden and they're all different kinds. So we're just going to use a variety. And I'll tell you measurements later on. But of course you'll need your tomatoes, some real lime juice, make sure it's 100%, salt, pepper, some alum, some garlic. We choose to do the canned garlic, but you can use fresh. Jalapeños, and we're also using some Mexican bell peppers that are really, really hot because we like ours really spicy. Onions and cilantro. And most of this is out of our garden, so we're really excited about doing this today. All right, let's get started by chopping our tomatoes. Okay, we are going to do a recipe in half because we have so many tomatoes, and so the stuff that I say in this one, you'll need to go to the description box for the actual recipe, because the ones I'm going to be saying in here is going to be a recipe and a half. Now, what we're doing here, we do not skin our tomatoes because we're using a blender you don't have to do that. So it's another step that you don't have to do. You take your really red tomatoes, we're rinsing them really good, and he is just taking off, coring them, and you really don't have to core. With the kind of blender that I'm using, it's a Vitamix. It does it really, really fine. If you want it fine, we kind of want ours chunky, but it blends it up really well. So it's just kind of a preference whether you want to take that core out, or if it's really big, just go ahead and do it. So anyway, we're gonna do what he's doing, and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, and I'm also cutting up all these peppers. Now I leave my seeds in but if you like a mild hot sauce, or you're a little afraid of some spice, then you take them out. And I also kind of cut mine a little big, because when you're cooking this, it's really gonna cook down. So I half them and then I just start chopping. So it's a preference whether you want to leave those seeds in or not. Okay, we're gonna cut the onions kind of big too, because we like a chunky salsa. If you do not like a chunky salsa, you can put them through a chopper or whatever, blender, or however you like it, but this is the way we're gonna do it because we like a chunky salsa. Okay, so we got all of our onions chopped up, and he's being silly. We've been chopping and chopping and chopping, and we're doing the onions. So we're gonna put it in this big pot that we're gonna cook it in. All of the peppers and all of the onions. We're gonna put it in this pot. This pot I can put a recipe and a half in. So, and then we're gonna start measuring our tomatoes that we're going to put through the blender. So this cooks down real far. It looks like a lot, but it's not. So put them in here, and like I said, we like ours kind of chunky, so we're just going to pulse it. It has the skins on it. Other way, yeah. Get it to the consistency that you like. Okay, and then we're going to measure. We're going to do 24 cups. I'm going to show you a little trick. We're down to we're doing 24 cups of tomatoes, and we just need about just a couple of more cups. Now when you do the cilantro, you kind of want to do it with a liquid of tomato. It just kind of helps. So we're just going to do a few more tomatoes. And then we'll get that in there, and then we'll start doing our spices. But that's a little trick. If you, instead of having to chop all that cilantro is not fun to chop. We'll do it with the tomatoes and just kind of make them a little more liquidy. If you don't have a Vitamix, you're missing out. It's wonderful. add that into there. And it looks kind of green, but that's okay because it's going to be stirred up. Okay, let's stir it. With all those stuff in the bottom. And this really cooks down, y'all, because we're going to cook it for an hour. And it cooks down. And that's how you get the chunky. It already looks good. So we're going to finish getting the cilantro all stirred up, and we'll show you how to do the spices. Okay, so he's going to add some lime, and for our recipe, you just need to go to the description box for how much you want to do for one. Go ahead. For one recipe, but for ours, we're going to have 1.5. So we're going to do. He's going to measure that out for ours, and then we're going to put some alum in there, and some garlic, and some black pepper. And some salt. And you can kind of just measure the salt to taste, however you like it. It's good right now. If you want to make this for fresh, and you could make it, eat it right now. It's wonderful just like this. But
this one bottle is exactly 2 1/4.
Okay, and then we're just going to start boiling it, and we're going to boil it for an hour. Okay, while we're getting this on the stove, what we're going to do with this is we're going to bring this to a boil, and after it starts boiling, we're going to set our timer for 1 hour, and we're going to let it go 1 hour. And what that does is it cooks it, but it also evaporates the water out of there, so it's more chunky that way. And so while we're doing that, we're going to get our jars and lids started. I have the oven on 250, and we are going to, I washed my jars, and we're going to put our jars upside down on a cookie sheet, or this is a Texas sheet cake, and we're going to put that in the oven for an hour or so. Now, this is our lids and jars, and this recipe that I'm doing for the 24 cups, a recipe and a half, that makes about 7 quarts. So I have my jars and my lids and bands in here, and we're going to turn this on probably the last 15 minutes and get that to boiling. You always want to use new seals. Don't ever use those twice. Now these bands, you can use those as many times as you want until they kind of get rusty, and then I just throw them out. But so I got those ready to turn on when it starts getting closer to the when we're going to need those. About the last 15 minutes. So right now we're just waiting for this to come to a boil, and then we'll set our timer, and we'll ladle them up. Now I am not going to process this in a water bath. This is a very, very old recipe that you don't have to do that. You used it years and years. An elderly lady friend, this is the way she's done it for years. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can go ahead and do a water bath, and you'll need a pot like this. Just a big pot, and you'll water bath in those for an additional 10 minutes. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to ladle it up into the jars, turn them upside down for 5 minutes, then turn them back up, and you're done. This is the easiest hot sauce recipe ever. So, but look at all these tomatoes we still have. We're going to be making another batch. So, we'll wait till this comes to a boil and set our timer, and then we'll start ladling it up. Okay, so we've got it's starting to boil, and you want a boil that doesn't stop when you stir it. Like that. So now we've started our timer for 60 minutes. And you can adjust the fire so it's not a really rolling boil. You just want like a soft boil. And you want to make sure you keep it stirred, every few minutes or so, because it will scorch. So just stir it every once in a while and you'll be good. Okay, our 60-minute timer is about to go off. And you can see how much it has cooked down, and you have to stir it about every 2 or 3 minutes because it does settle and you don't want it to scorch. And so for the last little while I've had these lids and bands on a very, very low boil. And our jars are been in the oven, of course, the whole hour. So we're fixing to take this all off and then start putting it in the jars. These jars are really, really hot. So we're going to turn them over. And I have this little one here, just in, I think last time I got 7 quarts, and then that about just a little over a pint. So it just kind of depends on how much it cooked down, whether I'll have, and we need to put in that one. So, I got this little funnel thing. It came with a canning pack that I got, kit. That's real handy. And I kind of keep it stirred, like in between things to do, or ladles. That way it's even as far as the liquid part and the chunky.
Thicker part.
Yeah. So we're just gonna ladle it all up. And then I'll show y'all how I clean the jars and with the lids on. You wanna, I usually fill it to that first little deal. That's just the way I do it. Some people like to measure and do that, but that's the way I do it. Watch out, because those jars are very hot. Now this time we use lemon juice in this recipe. Lime juice. The last batch I made, this is actually the second batch, I actually put sugar and vinegar in it, but I think we're gonna like this one better just for our particular taste. So in the description, I'll put that you can either use lemon or lime, or vinegar. You can add sugar if you want, but we prefer it not to be sweet. So,
because we're already sweet enough.
that's exactly right. So I'm going to continue to get all of these jarred up, and then I'll come back and show you how we do that last process. After you get them all full, you want a paper towel to clean these tops. And do not touch it. You don't want any finger oils or anything like that to prevent the sealing. Okay, so just clean it. This is a paper towel that was like just as hot as I could get it. Even though you're so careful, there's still going to be some residue. Okay, and then I've got this little handy dandy magnet thing that came in the canning kit also. You touch the outside, but don't touch that inside of this. This is wonderful for not burning yourself. And these need to be really hot. And we did get that little extra pint this time. And then we're going to screw it down as tight as we can. Let's see. Yes. And then we turn them upside down for 5 minutes. And I use filtered water to do this, lids and band, just so they don't turn. You may want to have a little deal because it is scorching hot. Yeah. And then turn them upside down. And that just helps that heat to seal that rubber on there. We'll do that for 5 minutes and then we'll turn them back over and let it, just leave them alone, and then they'll start doing a little, they'll do like a little hop. See how that, well, this is popped out. It'll pop in, and then you know it's sealed. And it makes kind of little music. That's, if you've done any canning, it's music to your ears.
Canning music.
Yeah. And then if it don't seal, just put it in your refrigerator. If you're like us, we'll sit and eat one of these quarts in one sitting. Okay, we'll set our timer for 5 minutes. Then we'll turn them back over and wait for them to start sealing. Okay, this is been 5 minutes. And we're gonna turn it over. And then we're just gonna leave them alone for till tomorrow to see if they all sealed. They'll start sealing in the next, 20 minutes or so. You'll start hearing that pop that I told you about. If you like this recipe, give us a thumbs up. We also have a Facebook and Instagram page if you'd like to check it out. We hope you enjoy it. Make you some. It's easy. It's tasty. And we'll see you on the next video.